Welcome to another episode of Cloud Unplugged.
Call me a cynic, John.
Salmon, I'm locked out my Instagram account. Can you get in for me?
Sounds a bit fishy. You can sweet talk this agent. Reset the password for somebody else's account. That every time somebody mentioned AI, the students started booing.
You've got a bit of Bluetooth. Don't call it bomb when you're on a flight. If they see it, that flight's turning around.
Mark Zuckerberg confirmed that launching a commercial cloud computing business is definitely on the table.
Welcome to another episode of Cloud Unplugged. We have some more news, as always. We have Anthropic's call to stop and regulate AI, which we'll kind of come on to. We have Instagram getting hacked by Meta's own AI support chatbot. We've got a little bit more on Meta around the cloud computing aspect of them. Are they going to do it? Are they not going to do it? They're going to get into that space. And then we've got the Monash chip, which is basically using photonics for transmitting data on the chip. And then we have two random stories. And as always, we'll kind of save them to the end. But yeah, the Anthropic, basically the call to stop AI by a company that does AI that's IPO-ing. What are your thoughts there, Salman?
So Anthropic has come up just last night and said, "Oh, we need to stop doing what we're doing. Make sure we have the right regulations." Call me a cynic, John, but this sounds to me like the classic "pull up the ladder," as the economics people call this. We've made some improvements. We've got some market share. Let's just pull up the ladder to make sure nobody else gets into it. That's what it seems like to me. I mean, it's happened in the past. Telecoms companies have done this in the past. AT&T, one of the big ones in America. You know, railway companies in the 1800s, they did that as well. Pharmaceuticals do it all the time. They do it all the time. They ask for regulation. It sounds a little bit weird because they're asking the world to slow down the AI development. And they actually also said that 80% of the code is now written by AI. So their researchers are not really writing the code anymore, 80% of it. But sounds a bit fishy when you do an initial public offering for $1 trillion. And perhaps you want to make some more noise. Maybe you start mentioning this stuff. I'm not really too sure. We haven't really heard too much from OpenAI, the likes of OpenAI and the other companies, but it sounds like perhaps a little bit more marketing from my point of view, John. You can call me cynical, but for sure we definitely need regulation on how things are being built, how safety needs to be taken into consideration. It sounds a little bit of a marketing stunt from me, John. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, as somebody that's about to invest in them, I think they need to regulate. I think I'm all for it. I think you should be listening to them, Salmon. You know, they're about to. I don't know actually, because to be fair, Jack Clark, he was a tech journalist and kind of moved to San Francisco. I know a little bit about him. He might have moved to San Francisco and was like was obsessed with AI and the progression of AI. And I think back then, even while DeepMind was being produced, there was a call. I can't remember the guy's name that was driving DeepMind, but
yeah,
even they were saying to regulate back then. And he's been a bit of an advocate. I don't think this is a new thing for him to say. He's said it for quite a long time, just generally speaking, and has been calling not necessarily for regulation to. I mean, this one feels a little bit fishy because of the way it's been phrased. But he was talking previously about how, you know, like children's toys and the safety of them, or food standards and the safety for food that you eat and things like that. And actually saying, you know, at the moment, there is nothing to stop anybody doing anything. So the Mythos model, they obviously didn't have to restrict it. You know, they could have just, you know, there's no regulation to stop it. They could have just let it fly, as any company that builds any model could. There's nothing stopping you today building some insane model that can, I don't know, specialize in biological warfare or something, right? And you could train that today and launch it, and there's nothing preventing you doing that. And then the ramifications of that is obviously like unbound. So I know he does believe in those things, and he does want checks and balances. He doesn't want to slow it down, but he wants the checks and balances that proves that it's safe, that proves that this model is safe. It can't be used for malintent, or maybe there's exposure internally and tests and things by government or something to assess risk. I'm not really sure, but yeah. But then this though is a bit different, because what he said here though is he's gone on a different thread where he's then said it's about basically self-improvement. And he's like, once it starts self-improving, then, you know, basically it can just make itself get better. And it's like improvement, but yeah.
What do they define this self-improvement? How do you define self-improvement?
I think it's where the model can become more effective, but it doesn't require engineers to do it. It can work it out itself and then fix almost itself to improve the training of itself to get more efficient and effective, and then improve the code around itself as well, and the exposure of that capability. And I think then it's almost like basically autonomous, which then means obviously, if you're thinking at the moment, the time it takes engineers to figure out how to train it and look at the data and do the parameters, that's human. And so it's slower, obviously, because whereas this becomes, you know, the growth and of the model and the improvement of the model will be like rapid, because it's basically got 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, non-stop, could be improving itself. I think is the thing. So,
because that's based on a criteria that's been defined already by somebody that says this is your gain or loss that you need to get, and based on that it self-improves. I again, call me cynical, John, if you like. I always don't really understand what the self-improvement means in its sense. Like, just producing more lines of code, is that self-improvement? Yes. You know, in neural networks, you have the loss function that you need to minimize in order to get the right answer, but does that gonna result in business value that's being added? I'm not sure. I don't know what the self-improvements actually means. I have no idea what that means, John, so perhaps you have a better understanding.
I guess because they were doing well, I know they've got telemetry, so they do this thing so they've got a lot of open telemetry internally on how effective their model is being used with anonymized data of customers.
Right.
So then they can kind of see, and I think there was talk about exposing that data economically to see if that's correlated with actual layoffs of companies, to then see if really is it AI that's causing disruption to you know, basically people laying people off, or are they just using it as an excuse because they're bloated, and there's no evidence to suggest that it is really AI. And so there's that. So I imagine the same data, obviously they'll have the data of like how good their models really have been, but then if it can write code and improve itself, then the model just gets better and better and better and better.
Fair enough.
I presume, and then can write its own code, because it's just basically like us, we just get better and better and better every day, you know.
better at predicting the next token. That's what it's doing. But so my question is, yes, all these companies for a long time, even before, you know, any of this Gen AI stuff was a thing, people were asking for more regulation and safer building of AI, but nothing really has happened, right? We have research groups. Who's actually going to start implementing these rules, right? So let's say if you go Formula One, FIA, their governing body, that has rules that the companies have to follow in terms of how much they can spend on development and the regulations that they provide. They provide strict regulations. This is what you need to build against, right? The car, the downforce levels, the engine power. Who's going to regulate AI? Who's coming up with all these rules? Is it representatives of all these companies? Is it going to be like an open source board, kind of like CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation? How it's going to work, I don't really understand. Is the government going to be involved? Are these companies that are building the models, they themselves going to regulate So how is that going to work? I don't really understand that part either. More questions
I
than
don't,
answers, John, in this
yeah, I
podcast.
don't know, because in the thing when I was like listening to what he was saying recently, I don't know how recent, maybe a week ago or maybe a couple of days ago, but they're a bit like he was basically saying like a nuclear power plant, has the ability to create nuclear bombs, right? So, but you don't stop the building of the nuclear power plant. You regulate those things so that it's less harmful, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't build them. Well, it did mean that historically, actually. So it actually slowed them
Yeah.
down because of the risks and of what happened. So I think, and I guess like anything, who comes up with the standards? Social media currently, is it bad for children? How do we really know? What impact is it really having? Should that have been regulated before? Should there have been a better understanding of it? And I suppose on a small scale, that's niched into obviously children and maybe them becoming adults and like what impact that's having.
Yeah.
But that's more social. This is more economical. It could be also defense, cyber crimes. It could be the production of all kinds of things. If it's, weapons, bombs, new viruses, like all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff that you could, in theory, be an expert on, which you couldn't have obviously managed. So I do kind of understand, like, should you be able to get those types of answers if you aren't a scientist?
Yeah.
Should you be allowed to go and work with a model that then can teach you how to build biological weapons? If you have nothing to do with that field, is that like safe and good? And is there a general use case for people learning about that things just out of self-interest?
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably who decides what information is exposed to who, and what's exposed to companies that maybe it should be exposed to, because that's the industry they're in. Maybe, I don't know. I think that's the
Yeah. Yeah. It's no, it's interesting that Anthropic came out and said like we need to slow down the development of AI, but after they got a fairly decent market chunk with
I
the models
absolutely
that people
agree
are
with you,
using.
though, by the way, just to
Yeah.
clarify. I believe this is to do with the IPO, because all the things I've just said are not what he's just said. These are things I
Yeah.
know
This
they've
is
said before,
you.
but this
Yeah.
time they're like, "Oh my god, look how good our model is! It's already writing 80% of our code. Soon it's going to be 100%. I can't believe it! Wow, it's so self-improving. It's like the best model out there. We should regulate it." By the way, we're
Yeah.
IPO-ing. If anyone's interested, yeah. So yeah,
it's
that's
it, it's
totally
like
different.
yeah, it's like being ahead on 1-0 in football and the 67th minute. You're like, oh, ref, just call it off now. The game's over. It's done. It's interesting about this IPO stuff as well, John. I don't know if you've seen recently Nasdaq. The index providers like Nasdaq and FTSE Russell. They've kind of changed the rules around when the companies IPO. They have what they call a seasoning period, where between like 3 months to a year before you can take any of these your IPOs, the shares, and put them in indexes, right? So 3 months to a year to entice these big tech companies like SpaceX, like Anthropic, to IPO. The Nasdaq and FTSE Russell have dropped down this seasoning period from like months, literally down to days, about 5 days or 10 days, right? And also, things like Nasdaq have a minimum free float rule of like 10%. Even that got scrapped. And also, these companies will, if they do float, they'll get a 3-time multiplier. So one of their shares is worth three. So something really interesting is happening in economics world to entice these companies, and perhaps they had a discussion, but I think it's still developing this news around changes in market, the way markets work, just to entice these companies to IPO because there's a lot of hype around it. I think that's
Yeah,
the
I
only thing
agree.
I can put to it. There's literally a lot of hype around it. So anything these companies say, people like Anthropic or SpaceX or OpenAI, it just becomes like I have to look at it. Is this yet another marketing release? So is that what we're doing here?
Well, I don't. It's a weird. I mean, this is. absolutely marketing, isn't it? Let's be honest. And even like Trump, I think, David Sachs guy, they said the same thing. Basically, it's just agenderistic. They're just trying to capture their own market and then obviously cause it to squeeze so that they can obviously capitalize. But I don't know whether it's really that. I think it felt like they've done a bit of a clever PR stunt where they've promoted through something negative. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
look how amazing we really are. We should do something about this, guys, because at this rate, we're so amazing. God knows what's going to happen. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of like the thread, isn't it? If we continue being this amazing, like who knows? Who knows what damage we might do? Somebody stop me. But yeah.
But
So,
yeah, fair enough. But at the same time, all the companies are cutting down on their AI spend. Uber have already, their CEO came out and they said, well, we talked about this last week, that they spent all their AI budget in April, and they're limiting it to $1,500 per developer person, $1,500 worth of tokens, and the same thing's happening in Microsoft. So I think Anthropic is for like, well, before it's too late, let's just IPO and make the money. I don't know. I'm probably gonna get cancelled, but I'll probably buy some shares in Anthropic myself.
no, because we were looking. I mean, to be fair, like this isn't just to Anthropic, but we were looking internally recently on like, okay, we're going to have an internal project. We're small. We're not like a big company. We're not an Uber, right? And we want people to use AI. We want to create like some agents. Could be using whatever. It could be using Agent Core in Amazon. It could be using the agentic service in Azure. Whatever. It doesn't really matter what it is. But in the cloud providers, we're like, okay, well, how do we stop it? How do we stop an accident where somebody writes the agent and it basically could almost like go through every single piece of data in an S3 bucket indefinitely and kind of continue looping, right? So we have to be careful. So let's put a cap on it. You can't put a cap on it. So basically, it's like several hours before the billing data will arrive anyway. And obviously, you're talking about instantaneous tokens. And all you can get is like the token metric. And then you'd have to work it out yourself. So you'd have to build something to somehow figure out whether you are or aren't hemorrhaging money inside of the cloud by accident with something, using agents and LLMs and things like that. And that's not even the developer side. On top of it, obviously, you got the developer usage. So it feels like the cost to value ratio without the right constraints means you could quite easily just burn through something like you could spend hundreds of thousands of pounds for something that didn't need to cost you hundreds and thousands of pounds, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Just center a div. Let me use all my tokens just to center a div. Let's do that.
Yeah, exactly. And then actually it costs you way more money than had you have just built it the old way. But yeah, it's like, I think it's a bit strange. But I don't know. I don't know whether I definitely don't think the hype's over. I think we've only just started, to be honest.
Yeah.
For a very long time, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
China's done some big investment as well in their AI startups and data centers, and so their DeepSeek, I think, got huge investment. I think they've just done a huge set of billions in DeepSeek. So I kind of, it's just poor little us, poor little island in the UK that's got nothing. What have we got? Got no data centers, got no real models. What have we got over here? BP. Yeah. Octopus Energy. Like, where's our models?
Yeah, that's
but
not looking good.
But what is good, and let me just tell you something that is pretty good, is if you get locked out of your Instagram account, you can now, using Meta's new feature, get in it. No problemo. You get locked out and you need to get in, it's letting you in. Without any problem. Have you heard about that?
Not just your account, anybody's account, to me, for that matter. So if
I get locked out, I can ask you, hey Simon, I'm locked out my Instagram account. Can you get in for me? And you'd be like, yeah. No worries,
Sure.
John. I can do that for you.
So this is the news that Meta released a new AI powered chat support agent, which you can talk to reset your password and log in if you get locked out. And what people found was you can sweet talk this agent to reset the password for somebody else's account. So what people did was they went on, connected, started chatting with this AI powered agent and said, "Yeah, my account has been hacked." And they just picked a random account. I think they picked one of the Obama's era White House account from Instagram. It's inactive for a long time, but it's one of those accounts. And they said, "Well, I've been locked out. Can you just reset my password? Here is my email address." Provided a completely new email address, and that email address received a one login, a token for logging in, and you put the passcode in, and it gave them an access. And it didn't impact any accounts that have 2FA, two-factor authentication, enabled, but the chatbot was able to bypass all of the setup and configuration that you used to do in the past, where only the right people can access it and confirm it. People were able to sweet talk this agent and get into accounts very easily. So
That's so
that's
bad,
what
isn't it?
happened last week.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Should I say the word dumb? On that of if you are gonna do a chatbot, you wouldn't think it would be over. You think it would know the identity of the person talking to it to know that what they've asked
Yeah.
for isn't pertaining to that. It doesn't seem that complicated, but
Yeah, or just stop the chatbot from doing any identity related stuff. Yeah, this is straight off the Instagram Meta, sorry, Meta announced they laid off a lot of employees. So of course they're looking into improvements, efficiencies using AI. I think this is another case where a feature was released way too quickly, perhaps. I feel like
right,
this maybe wasn't tested that well, because you can put guardrails in models and tell it, "Oh, this is your boundary. You cannot go out of this. You cannot do." You build into that you cannot do any of the identity related stuff, right? If you do want to confirm it, and also there were instances where people were saying they managed to create video selfies of people using AI tooling to fool this AI AI support chat support model to say that they are the actual person, just using their photo. So yeah, I think is probably just way too. They just released it way too quickly, um, and caused a bit of an issue. But many of the people, because they had multi-factor authentication enabled, that kind of worked in their favor. Security, as always, has to be done in layers, but this just seems, as you say, John, very dumb in the way that happened, and it caused a bit of a nightmare. But this is the thing with AI nowadays, John, because there's so much news, people forget really quickly. This happened a few days ago, like 3 to 4 days ago. It didn't happen that long ago.
I didn't even see this one, which is what's quite hard. There's just almost like so much going on. You kind of can't even really keep track. I didn't hear of this one until you told me about it.
Yeah, I mean, fair play to Meta. They fixed the issue. This happened, I think, end of May, and they fixed by the 2nd of June. It was fixed in a couple of days because, yeah, of course, you can stop it, chat from doing those kind of things. But where's the testing? Why was this not
Well, they did.
tested?
That was the testing. That
Production
was the
testing
Yeah,
product.
that was the testing. They got in. They were like, it's the Obama test. That's what it's got. If you either can get in the White House or hack Obama's account or whatever, that's the true Obama test. Or
So
even trick people into thinking you're Obama.
yeah,
Is the other one with AI, and that's it. But
so basically, what happens is attackers found they could steal the Instagram accounts by chatting to Meta's own AI support bot and asking it to hand over access. So you don't need any password. The Obama White House account went. A Space Force official account went. A security researcher account went. The bot was just basically trying to be helpful. Turns out being helpful and being able to verify who you're talking to are two completely different product requirements. And what Meta did was shipped only one: be helpful. And that's what happened.
what actually happened to those accounts though? As in,
Oh,
what did they do to those accounts? Did they like?
I don't Yeah, because some of these accounts were created like a long time ago, so they had short handles. I think people try to sell it, perhaps. I'm
Uh,
not sure what. I follow on to onwards. What happened to it? Why people can try and sell these accounts, right? Because the handle has
is a
followers
good handle.
and it's a good handle.
You were also mentioning about the data center cloud computing, Meta entering cloud computing before to me. And I know there's been rumors of this before. I think they've made suggestions of this before a while back. Can't remember when, because obviously they've got all their compute there, and then maybe they could like do an Amazon where it's like, oh, we could turn into like a cloud provider type thing. Do you know more about this? Are they going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, at Meta's annual shareholder meeting on May 27th, 2026, Mark Zuckerberg confirmed that launching a commercial cloud computing business is definitely on the table. That's what he said, and he also mentioned that companies approach Meta almost every week asking to buy API access or basically raw compute. So they've not rented out any of the capacity. Don't forget, Meta, they've built a large infrastructure for themselves, their own data centers, so they can host tools like Facebook, like WhatsApp and Instagram with millions and millions of users. And also, they have their own open source model stack for Llama, the open source models that last got released in 2024. And I think they're reworking on a bunch of stuff. And, they've never rented stuff out before, but now the capacities are running out elsewhere, and the calculation is changing because you can earn a lot more money. And Meta has raised its 2026 AI capital up to like $125 billion, and what they're trying to do is also secure a kind of like 6 gigawatts of nuclear energy to power its data center. So, and in the current cloud market, you really have three big players: AWS, about 30% of the share; Azure, about 25% of the share; Google, around 10% of the share. And Meta's thinking perhaps we can also become one of the big fours. Instead of so that's what they're doing. It's an interesting move. I don't know if it will happen, but um, they have they have a lot of capex that they can use to build this. And perhaps maybe even undercut Azure and AWS to get some customers.
Mm. Yeah, I don't know, because I know that like we mentioned last time, Google got a load of investment
Mm.
for obviously their capex spend, so they're like de-risking. And I think obviously even with some of the IPO-ing and other things, obviously that's other ways to kind of offset your own costs even on some of it. So I think there's like a little bit of a, I don't know, are people 100% convinced that they're prepared to risk their own financials and money on the capex spend of AI compute for the market? And it feels like they're de-risking, the gamble by using other people's money, VC's money, and getting investment in and things like that. Which would beg the question of, I don't know what their services even would be outside of just native compute. How they've automated, because you've got to make it a good experience as well. You can't just that you've got like racks of compute. Some's got to be easy to consume. But yeah, I don't know. It seems a bit suspect to me that I feel like people are not sure. I think a lot of the
Yeah,
companies are just kind of not too sure.
but it's another revenue stream, John. Because at the moment, that's not really a revenue stream because they're using
True,
it.
that's true.
They perhaps realize that they have capacity that's kind of like AWS, right? They realize they have capacity laying around. Maybe they can sell it. And because they went heavily in 2023, 2024 into the open llama models, but they're not releasing anything. They haven't released anything for the last like 18 months. So I'm not sure what's happening internally. Perhaps they're like, well, let's just sell this compute. I think it'll be good, but I'm not sure if Meta will have their own AI agents that you can get into other people's account. But so that's
Yeah, you'd
it's
be
an
able to
interesting one.
host. You'd be able to
Yeah,
just host host really easily on other people's
It's-
compute. You just chat to the bot and just be like, put me into Salmon's tenant.
Kubernetes
Yeah.
cluster.
Yeah, exactly. Get it in his Kubernetes cluster. Yeah, so there's another story I kind of moving on, which is I don't have a huge amount because it's like a little bit of innovation happening. But basically, there's been the Monash chip, and it's a way of using photonics, but basically creating light, essentially to basically transmit data, but then kind of bending it and curving the light, and then transmitting it through to the receiving end, basically an electrical signal, all in one device, essentially. So, meaning that they can obviously transmit. One, it's very small because it's atomic size level, so it's like a special
Right.
type of light, and it's like atoms, like very very small atomic size nanostructures, and therefore they can obviously like transmit the data in much smaller kind of chipset and obviously a high volume of data using photonics, and basically photonic circuits, which are like less dense than like optical circuits and things like that. But that's all I know. A little bit of like innovation from a university. I think it was Stanford University potentially.
Yeah.
Didn't it? But I might have got that wrong. But yeah, which is kind of cool. A little bit of innovation that isn't AI.
Is this like what's the main benefit around it? Does it use like less energy, or is that the main thing? Of course, it's faster because yes, it's light. But is there like an additional benefit? Perhaps it doesn't use as much energy as like silicon chips.
Well, obviously it doesn't heat. It's not using copper to transmit. It's using light. So if you're using light everywhere, then it doesn't heat up. So it's obviously room temperature. You don't need to cool it as much. So there'll be benefit there. But all the peripheral things, who knows on like how it would wire up into actual compute chips in the end, and what the chip even is. It's probably not a very, the transistor on it is probably quite meaningless. But yeah. But that was like another little bit of things. So things kind of going on, always innovation happening, which is good. It's not all AI innovation, Salman. All right.
It's good. It's good. I want some quantum and I want some light now, John.
You need some light. You need some quantum, and maybe there's a new thing called Kubernetes. We could maybe talk about the K8s as people abbreviate to.
K8. But first we got to learn K8s. First we got to learn K8s and then we can talk about it. Perhaps.
Yeah, well, I don't learn K8s nowadays.
No, you don't learn K8s.
Yeah, no, I don't learn K8s. Yeah, so that's the right way forward.
I think that's fair enough.
Yeah, and you just learn Claude A8s. But anyway, yeah. So, and then some random stories. So, do you want to talk about your random stories of the?
Yeah, my random story is related to AI, and this is the season of graduations. People are getting graduated around this time, especially in America. You have commencement ceremonies in USA in like May, and graduating students are listening usually to a speaker who comes in, and they will give a speech and give some words of encouragement on how they can go into the world and make a difference. But what people noticed that every time somebody mentioned AI, the students started booing whoever the speaker was. So, and it was a bit funny because former Google CEO Eric Schmidt did it as well. He started talking about how AI is shaping the future, and how you need to people need to look into it. And people started booing it. There's another commencement ceremony where you had an automated AI announcer that basically mispronounced the names and skipped a bunch of students' names as well because they're like, "Oh, it's AI, so we should use that." That didn't go down too well. But the point here is that unemployment amongst recent graduates between ages of 22 and 27 has gone up to like 5.6. And
Wow,
and entry level job competition has increased by like 20%. And I think students are perhaps a little bit wary when people start mentioning AI because we talked about this stuff. But yeah, and one of the commencement speeches when people were booing, the speaker just said, "Deal with it." I mean, that's not the right way of doing this stuff, but it's interesting to see what's happening. This is a bit of a random news, which is not so random in our current climate. That the people booing the message of AI.
I don't know why they're booing. Like, what are they booing about? Just become an influencer. That's like, what is it to boo? You can play games and get and like make money from people watching you. Just become an influencer. That's it. That's all you need to be focusing on.
Start a podcast. That'll work too.
Start a podcast.
Like even
film every detail of your life. Yeah.
Even influencers, they're becoming AI now. People making AI influencers. So what do we got left, John? You were asking this question.
Yeah,
what
people won't follow AI influencers though. You just the prime job. I mean, you could become a dentist or a vet, or you could find a vocation, maybe work with other people, find out what you're really good at, get social skills, get friends, or just become an influencer. Focus on like recording yourself eating, and every thought you just record, you put it out there, you basically film all your thoughts, and that's how you should be. That's where you should be spending your time. That's the future.
Thanks for the advice, John.
It's just me. I like to give good advice. My story, which is a quick one. If you've got a phone and you've got a bit of Bluetooth on there, and you're deciding like what your device might be called, and you're enabling it, maybe for your headphones or whatever, don't call it bomb when you're on a flight, because if they see it, that flight's turning around. And this happened from going to the United States. So it's going to Mallorca, Palma and Mallorca.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they U-turned. So they were like, they put an announcement saying, can whoever's Bluetooth device that's called bomb, can you turn it off? And they didn't turn it off. And then so they basically turned the entire flight round and went all the way back to the United States because they were worried about someone's phone. Maybe it was like real or something, I don't know. So you got to be careful with what you're labeling your phones. You can't just call it whatever you want. So there you go, a little lesson for people.
And on that bombshell, it's time to end the episode.
I like what you did there. That was good. A smooth operator. Cool. But yeah, that is time to end the episode, isn't it? Actually, to be fair, that is all the news. So yeah, tune in next week where we'll have more news happening as always, and we shall keep you posted on what's going on.
Cheers.
Cool. Bye bye.